Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the specifics of tuning some classic Tamiya
Yeah, the
buggies.
Grasshopper, Hornet, GH2, Super Hornet, Rising Fighter, even the Mad Bull.
Exactly. We're focusing on shock absorbers, those CVA oil shocks, and specifically what oil to put inside them.
Right, so if you've got one of these kicking around, or you're just interested in RC mechanics, well, this should be useful.
Or even if you just find it interesting how design choices, affect how something actually performs.
And there are loads of recommendations out there, aren't there? We've looked at quite a few.
We have lots of forum posts, old articles. Our goal here is to give you some, let's say, evidence-based guidance.
And one thing that pops up all the time is people suggesting lighter oil than the standard Tamiya #400 yellow that often comes in kits or shock sets.
Yeah, why is that? That's what we really want to unpack.
So our mission really is to help you understand the basics of shock damping, but specifically for these buggies. They've got their quirks.
Oh, definitely. Tuning these isn't like tuning a modern race kit. It's more about working with their character.
Exactly. So maybe start with the fundamentals. What do shocks actually do?
Good idea. There are dampers, right. They control how fast the suspension moves.
That's it. Compression going up and rebound coming back down.
Hmm.
The springs hold the car's weight and take the initial hit.
But the shocks control the speed of that spring movement, and the oil inside is key.
Yep. The oil's viscosity, basically how thick it is, provides the resistance. We usually measure it in centistokes, CST, or sometimes weight, WT.
Higher number means thicker oil.
Thicker oil, more resistance. Simple as that.
So if you use, say, a thicker oil, what effect does that have on the car?
Well, it slows everything down. So you might get more stability, especially at high speed or cornering.
Less body roll.
Less roll, yeah. And it helps stop the chassis slapping the ground after a jump, less bottoming out.
But there's a downside.
Can be. It might feel harsher, especially over small bumps. And you could lose some traction on rough ground because the wheels can't react as quickly.
Okay, so then thinner oil must be the opposite.
Pretty much. Faster compression and rebound. The wheels can follow bumpy ground better, potentially giving you more grip.
But maybe more chassis roll.
And less resistance to bottoming out on big landings. It's a trade-off.
And the pistons inside the shock matter too, don't they? The little discs with holes.
Absolutely. Fewer holes, or smaller holes, means the oil gets forced through a smaller space, which increases the damping effect even with the same oil.
Right. And temperature affects oil thickness too, yeah.
It does. Oil gets thinner when it's hot, thicker when it's cold. Something to keep in mind.
Okay, so standard tuning advice might say thicker oil for smooth tracks, thinner for rough. But these old Tamiyas.
They throw a spanner in the works, especially the Grasshopper and Hornet platform.
Let's talk about that rear suspension. It's unique.
Unique is one word for it. It's a rigid axle, the whole gearbox, and motor pivots as one unit.
Which means loads of unsprung weight bouncing around.
Yeah. Exactly. Unsprung weight being the stuff the springs don't support, wheels, axle, gearbox in this case. More mass means more inertia, harder to control.
But that's not even the biggest issue, is it? It's that lockup thing.
Torque reaction lockup, yeah.
Yeah.
When you hit the throttle, the motor's torque tries to rotate the whole gearbox backwards.
Which pushes the shocks out, extends them.
Right. It basically locks the rear suspension solid under acceleration. It can't compress.
So the damping oil, it doesn't even matter at that point.
Pretty much. The suspension isn't moving freely, so the oil can't damp the movement. That's why they hop and skip under power.
Ah, okay. So tuning the rear shocks is less about ideal damping and more about damage control.
Sort of, yeah. Trying to minimize the bounce when it does move, rather than perfectly controlling compression and rebound like on a modern car.
What about the Mad Bull? It uses the DT01 chassis, right? Still has that pivoting rear?
It does, but the geometry or something means the torque lockup isn't nearly as bad. Plus, it has independent front suspension, which helps.
So more conventional tuning might apply there.
A bit more, yes. Often, just fitting oil shocks instead of the standard friction dampers makes a huge difference on the Mad Bull. The principles of damping actually start to work better.
Okay, so people usually upgrade to Tamiya's CVA shocks. The 505/9 Mini and the 505/20 Short are common.
Those are the classics. The minis are shorter, often used on the front. Shorts are longer for the rear. There's also the 54567 set for the DT03, which works on the Mad Bull too.
And the Tamiya oils we see mentioned are usually #400 yellow.
That's a kit standard, maybe around 30-35 weight equivalent.
Then #300 orange.
Lighter, maybe 20-25 weight.
And #200 red.
Very light, like 10-15 weight, perhaps even less. You generally don't go thicker than #400 on these.
Right. So let's get down to it. Based on all this, what are some good starting points for oil? Say, Grasshopper and Hornet first.
Okay. For the front, if you put CVA minis on, probably hashtag 200 red, you almost want minimal damping there.
And the rear, the crucial bit.
Rear CVA shorts, almost certainly hashtag 200 red. Super light, often with the softest springs you can find, and maybe the 3-hole pistons to let it move as freely as possible.
Trying to fight that bounce.
Exactly. For the Grasshopper 2 or Rising Fighter, maybe slightly more sophisticated.
Maybe. Front, still light, hashtag 200 red probably. Rear, you might get away with hashtag 300 orange, but still light.
Super Hornet's lighter overall, isn't it?
Yeah, so maybe hashtag 300 orange front and rear could work there. It doesn't need heavy damping.
In the Mad Bull, which behaves a bit more normally.
You could start with the kit standard, hashtag 400 yellow front and rear, see how it feels.
Or maybe step down to hashtag 300 orange if you run on mixed or rough surfaces.
Yeah, that's a good option too. Seems much more like conventional tuning.
So the clear trend, especially for that Grasshopper Hornet platform, is much lighter oil than stock. Let's explicitly state why again.
Okay, reason 1, compensating for the bounce.
Right. The high unsprung weight and that torque lockup. Light oil minimizes resistance when the suspension can move, lets it react a bit better.
Reason 2, better on rough ground.
Yeah, helps the wheels follow the terrain, keeps the tires in contact more. More grip for typical bashing.
And it just feels less bouncy. Reduces the pogo stick effect.
Hopefully. Makes for a slightly plusher, less jarring ride. And these cars are light. They don't need heavy damping anyway.
Of course, where you drive matters too.
Huge difference. Rough, loose dirt. That definitely favors the lighter oils. Hashtag 200 or hashtag 300.
Smoother surfaces, maybe tarmac or short grass.
You might try slightly thicker, maybe hashtag 300 or even hashtag 400 on the Mad Bull. But on the Grasshopper Hornet rear, that bounce might still push you back to lighter oil regardless.
And driving style, casual fun versus trying to go fast.
Casual bashing, lighter oils are more forgiving. Smoother driving, maybe experiment thicker if the chassis and surface allow it. But jumps, that's tough.
Yeah, jumps need damping to stop bottoming out, but the Grasshopper rear just doesn't want heavy damping.
It's a difficult compromise. Often, fixing the rear end feel takes priority over everything else on those models.
So view these recommendations as just starting points.
Absolutely. Get some hashtag 200 and hashtag 300 oil, maybe hashtag 400 for the Mad Bull, and experiment. Small changes. See what you prefer for your car and where you run it.
Okay, so wrapping this up, key takeaway. Lighter oils, like Tamiya hashtag 200 red or hashtag 300 orange, are generally the way to go for these classics with CVA shocks.
Especially for the Grasshopper platform rear end. It's about managing the bounce, improving compliance on rough ground, and matching the car's lightweight.
It's really about understanding these old designs have limitations and you tune around them.
Exactly. You're not trying to make them into something they're not.
So use these tips as a base, get experimenting, and find what feels good to you.
Yeah. And maybe the final thought here is, isn't it fascinating how these seemingly simple vintage designs create such unique handling puzzles? Understanding why they behave like they do because of things like torque lockup. That's half the fun, isn't it? It makes you appreciate the engineering, even the flaws.
It really does. Makes the whole experience a bit richer. Great stuff. Thanks for diving into this with us.
My pleasure.
Until next time on The Deep Dive.